What does it mean when 7 nations, representing just 10% of the world's population, gather in the French Alps to chart a course for global order? That is the question hanging over this year's G7 summit, a meeting that claims to speak for the international community, but increasingly resembles an echo chamber of a shrinking West. President Trump and fellow G7 leaders have convened against a backdrop of overlapping crises: the grinding war in Ukraine, escalating tensions across the Middle East, economic uncertainty rattling global markets, and visible strains within the transatlantic alliance itself. The official agenda calls for coordination on these urgent issues. But beneath the surface, the summit is wrestling with a more fundamental problem: the growing gap between the club's self-image as the world's steering committee and its rapidly eroding weight in a multipolar world. Let's look at the numbers. In the 1970s, G7 nations accounted for roughly 70% of global GDP. Today, that figure has fallen to about 43%, less than half, and still declining. BRICS, after its 2023 expansion, now represents a larger share of the world's population and a comparable share of global economic output. Yet the G7 continues to frame itself as the legitimate core of global governance. This is not leadership. This is a representative deficit, a small group of wealthy nations making rules for everyone else, without everyone else at the table. The summit's rhetoric centers on defending the rules-based international order. But whose rules, and for whose benefit? The same G7 members that lecture others on trade rules have embraced protectionist measures of their own. The same countries that pledged $100 billion annually to help developing nations tackle climate change have yet to fully deliver on that promise, a promise now over a decade old. And during the pandemic, vaccine hoarding by wealthy nations starkly revealed China's position on this is consistent and clear. Global governance should be anchored in the United Nations, the only truly universal international body, not in exclusive clubs that select their own members. China advocates for a world of cooperation, not confrontation, of openness, not closed-door blocks. On Ukraine, China calls for ceasefire and peace talks. On the Middle East, China supports a just settlement for the Palestinian people. The framing of China as a systemic challenge says more about the G7's need for a unifying adversary than it does about China's actual role in the world. 3 decades after the Cold War, the world has moved on. Power has diffused. New voices, from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, demand to be heard. The G7 can either adapt to this reality or retreat further into a narrative of democratic versus authoritarian that no longer captures the complexity of a multipolar age. The future of global governance does not lie in narrowing the circle. It lies in expanding the table. And that is a conversation the 7 leaders in the Alps cannot have alone.